So again, my name is Donna Chittum. I serve as the recruiter for the CSB. And I want to just take a few minutes to give you an overview of what we are planning to do today. And then I'm going to turn it over to the experts in this area. So the purpose of our today's session really is to share with you various aspects of the job to help you determine if this position is right for you. It's important to note that the realistic job preview is not used as a selection tool. We're not collecting any resumes, so it's not in any way perceived as part of a selection process. Applications still must be submitted using the county's online applicant tracking system, and Treasurer is going to share more information about the application process and give you some tips later on in the presentation. So for now, I want to give you a little background about the position. So it is a behavioral health prevention specialist is the working title. Under the county's classification system, it is a behavioral health specialist 2. It means it's a grade S23. This is a full-time position, so the salary range will be $57,384 to $95,640. And it is important to note that this position also qualifies new hires to the county. It will qualify for a signing bonus of $2,000. Also want to touch on what the minimum and preferred qualifications are for the position. So the minimum qualifications is a bachelor's degree in psychology, social work, nursing, counseling, or a related health field, plus 1 year of clinical experience, or a bachelor's degree in any area with a current valid QMHP, which is a qualified mental health professional certification, plus the 1 year of clinical experience. Preferred qualification, it is highly desirable if you are bilingual in English, Spanish, or another language. Would be a great trait to have in this position. And also mental health first aid. If you're certified as a trainer or certified to facilitate mental health first aid, that is also a great plus. So next I'm going to pass this over to Marla Zametsky, who is again the manager of Wellness, Health Promotion and Prevention. She's going to be leading the presentation to share details about the role, the expectations, and the impact that this position has on the community that we serve. Just a few housekeeping items before we turn the presentation over to Marla. Today's session is being recorded so that you may watch it again later. As I mentioned, Treasurer is going to be sharing information about completing your application later on. She's also added to the chat a copy of the position description that you might want to pull down before we close today. And we are going to have time at the end for question and answer after the presentation. So feel free throughout the presentation just to drop your questions in the chat. At the end, we are going to have a video link to share. So we'll follow up with all of you who registered for this session to get a copy of that position description and a link out to you. And if you didn't register for today's session, then feel free to also post your email in the chat and we'll be sure to get you added to that distribution list. Okay, with that, I am going to turn this over to Marla Zametsky, the manager for Wellness, Health Promotion and Prevention.
Thanks, Donna. Thank you, everybody, for coming. So a little bit about the CSB, just very quickly who we are. If you're not familiar with the Community Services Board, essentially the CSBs are the public authority, the behavioral health authorities in Virginia that provide mental health and behavioral health substance misuse services. So we are the public mental health system. Every county or counties collectively have a CSB. There's mandated services that we provide, which is services for mental illness, services for substance use disorders, developmental disabilities, and then we have other services that include emergency services and prevention. And so that is the Community Services Board, essentially the public mental health system in Virginia. Within the CSB, get my thing to switch for you. There you go. So within the CSB, we have kind of buckets of services. So children, youth, and family services, developmental disability services to help individuals who have disabilities, mental health services, that's both adult and youth, residential, substance use disorder services, and then prevention and wellness. And so prevention and wellness is where this position sits. So what is prevention? So essentially, prevention in a nutshell is about focusing on risk and protective factors to enhance and strengthen our community. So to decrease risk factors, strengthen the community, build resilience, create hope. And for us in behavioral health, in prevention, we focus on behavioral health issues, including various mental health challenges, substance misuse, and decreasing even the onset of substance initiation. And we use what we refer to as a social ecological model. What that means is we work with different community sectors. Our work in prevention is about partnerships. Without teamwork, it doesn't matter. The most determined kind of prevention programming that we have really will fall flat if we don't have partnerships. And so prevention is about partnerships, and it's partnerships to strengthen the community by focusing on those protective factors. We do that through a number of different strategies. So in prevention, in general, when you're looking at whether it's a substance misuse issue or promoting mental health and mental wellness, we look at our strategies, and our strategies depend on the targeted area, the targeted community, the issues that we are working on. And so we do that based on different strategies. And those strategies are information dissemination, so increasing the knowledge of within the community about a particular topic or issue, prevention education, that's skill building. So that could be, for example, mental health first aid, or learning how to intervene if somebody is having suicidal thoughts and feelings. Also helping the communications department, helping media to better report and how they talk about substance and mental health issues. So that's that prevention education strategy. And then we have what's called positive alternatives, environmental strategies. Environmental strategies are all of those marketing and social media and social norming practices that we do. And then community-based processes is essentially our coalition work. And we have two coalitions that we support in Fairfax County that our prevention team does. One is the Fairfax Prevention Coalition, which focuses on substance misuse. And the other is called SPAN. It's the Suicide Prevention Alliance of Northern Virginia. And it's a regional suicide prevention coalition. And then, of course, identification and referral is another prevention strategies. And you could be working on one particular issue and doing multiple prevention strategies. How you figure out how to do that is through what we call the strategic prevention framework. Essentially, this is the framework that if you're a prevention specialist on our team, you are using and infusing this framework in everything that we do. Our goal is to be data informed and data driven. And so this is a comprehensive approach that we use to address a particular behavioral health problem, a substance misuse challenge. And so what it is assessment. So we look at what's the problem, then capacity. What do we have in our community to work with to address that problem? Planning, which is, well, what should we do about it? How should we go about doing it? And that's where those partnerships also are central. In fact, partnerships is throughout this whole framework. And then implementation. So, okay, how are we going to put this plan in place? How are we going to put it in action? And then evaluation, which is our plan succeeding? This framework is really at the core of everything we do in prevention. In our state, in Virginia, and specifically here in Fairfax County, we have some particular prevention strategies that we work on. And we have about 13 different prevention initiatives that we use in Fairfax that fall under these buckets. And so counter tools, which is a merchant education. So you might not be aware, but in Fairfax County, we have a team of prevention specialists here at the CSB that go around to over 600 tobacco retailers and provide them every year with merchant education about the law, Tobacco 21, And so we form partnerships with those merchants. We do coalition work. I spoke about that earlier, the SPAN Coalition and the Fairfax Prevention Coalition. Mental health promotion and suicide prevention, we have initiatives that fall under that, whether that's QPR, which is a training to help everybody in the community learn how to intervene if somebody is feeling thoughts of suicide, or even just to help you determine how to ask, how to talk about suicide. We have free screenings, we have mental health first aid, a bunch of other initiatives fall into that bucket. Lock and Talk is another bucket that we focus on, which is again a suicide prevention. It's about lethal means. Within there would be over-the-counter prescription abuse and misuse. So there's a bunch of initiatives that would fall under there. And then ACE interface, really ACE interface goes through the heart of everything we do as well, which is learning the impact of adversity in childhood on brain development, and then how that impacts your social, behavioral health impact. That's a lot, and that's because we do a lot. But these are those core strategies that I just spoke about, core buckets, and then programming that falls under that. And so if you're a prevention specialist, you will be working in all of these areas. So what are the competencies that you would need to know? In addition to the things that Donna talked about early on, our prevention work really goes to, I mentioned that the SPIF, we call it, the Strategic Prevention Framework. So if you're a prevention specialist, you're kind of a jack of all trades of many different things. You know a little bit about behavioral health, about depression, anxiety, suicide prevention. You know a little bit about substance misuse. You know a little bit about marketing. You know about a program evaluation and assessment. You get to build all of these skills. And so the key kind of competencies to know is, as I mentioned, the skill sets that are related to the Strategic Prevention Framework, coalition building and community mobilization. So working with communities. How do you work with communities? What does that look like? What doesn't that look like? What are the things that we might have done in the past that we don't do now when we work with communities? Like, how do you build real partnerships? Having an understanding of that. Group facilitation and communication. Standing up and giving a presentation about behavioral health issues and coping, and or giving a training to a large group or small group. And then being technology and social media savvy, which I think everybody can attest to now in this pandemic world that we're living in. Technology is so key. It's really key in prevention because messaging and getting out our messages is very important. So being social media savvy, but also evaluation. The SPIF that I talked about, understanding how to do evaluation, requires some technological skills. Prevention ethics, current drug trends and policies. There's a phrase that gets said a lot in prevention, that if you've been, for example, for marijuana, to one marijuana training, you've been to one marijuana training, because things change all the time. So prevention specialists have to be curious and staying on top of things and learning new things and sharing it amongst everybody so that we can all learn and know a little bit and be able to help each other move forward so that we can really build on those protective factors that community has. Of course, social determinants of health and physical and behavioral health. Health equity. Health equity goes through everything that we do, or should go through everything that we do. We have, as you may know, One Fairfax in Fairfax County, and that is a policy that infuses everything. And so in prevention, we want to make sure that we are looking at health equity. What are we missing? Who's missing? Who's not at the table? The strategy that we thought would be wonderful and perfect for a particular substance use issue, who's it not going to be relevant for? Who's it not going to touch, and why? And what can we do to change that? And that ties into cultural responsiveness. So with cultural responsiveness, are our prevention activities culturally responsive? Are they looking at the traditions of the population that we're working with or partnering with? So those are all, as you can see, tied together, tied to our programming, tied to the strategic prevention framework, tied to how we implement our work and how we're going to move forward. And so to give you a picture of that, my colleague Chad Christian is here, and he's going to talk a little bit about a day in the life. So what could that look like or a week, a month, but what does it look like to actually be on the ground as a prevention specialist doing this important work in our community? I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thanks, Marla. Hey, everybody, as Marla said, my name is Chad Christian, and I am a prevention specialist here on the Wellness, Health Promotion, and Prevention team. And I'll be giving you just a general glimpse into what a work week looks like for our team. One of the major underlying themes for our work here on the Wellness, Health Promotion, and Prevention team will be outreach and engagement. So that's the constant exchange of information and resources with community members and community partners, seeking out and identifying those blind spots or underrepresented communities who can benefit from our programming, but may not have access to the information or services that the CSB or that the Wellness, Health Promotion, and Prevention team provides. So making sure they're aware of our services and delivering those to those communities, identifying and building rapport and connections with community partners, and building a steady stream of information or exchange of information about what their community needs and how we can meet those needs. We also do a great deal of research. That's researching and reviewing community trends here in Fairfax as they pertain to mental illness, mental wellness, suicide prevention, substance misuse, and offering our services to strengthen those communities in real time. Next, we have a lot of programming needs, so ensuring that we can effectively deliver all the trainings that Marla discussed, mental health first aid, QPR, things of that nature, and also infusing current trends into those training models to make sure that all the information that we present could be up to date or will be up to date. Attending tabling events is a big part of our position as well. That's at fairs, community gatherings, seminars, attending webinars independently to increase our knowledge base as we're engaging with community members, just to make sure all the information that we're presenting is up to date and factual. We also have individual initiatives that we tend to, as team members, and co-lead with team members. For example, I lead the Youth Mini Grant Initiative. I co-lead an initiative called Photo Voice. I also manage the website for the Fairfax Prevention Coalition. I'm a part of the CSB's equity team and a subgroup of that team, the Black primary care physicians team and the Black mental health group as well. And some of the requirements for those initiatives will be writing press releases, hosting information sessions, recruitment in the community, facilitating large and small group sessions. For example, I have a 3-person training on Saturday. And that following week, I have a 33-person training, right? So being comfortable with those large and small group sessions, conducting evaluations on the trainings that we provide and the sessions that we hold, constant reporting, generating documents for participation, as well as creating best practices for programs that we engage with and that we lead. And last but not least, some of the job skills that I think are important to ensure success on the team will be just the general proactivity, being self-motivated, as Marla mentioned, being comfortable with public speaking in those small group sessions and in those larger sessions as well, delivering the trainings. Data entry and reporting is a constant for our position, participating in broadcasts, whether it's podcasts, radio interviews, local commercials. Networking is a big part of our job. We have to know what the community needs. In order to do that, we have to be a part of the community and engaging with those leaders who can kind of communicate specifically what their community could benefit from. And something I think is very important is being comfortable with working in diverse populations. We do a bunch of trainings, things change from day to day. You're never just working within one specific population. So just being comfortable with engaging with diverse populations across the board is a huge benefit to your skill set for this team. So thanks, Marla.
Thank you, Chad. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you do. It's wonderful. So application tips. You're going to, I muted myself. There we go. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Treasure, who's going to talk a little bit about just some application tips for if you're interested in applying for the position, things that would help.
Thank you, Marla. So once again, my name is Treasure Corbin. I'm the HR business partner for the Fairfax County Falls Church CSB. So just want to quickly share a few tips. So number one, your application is what is evaluated by the recruiters and or the hiring manager. So make sure that you complete the full application. Okay, so you must make sure that you fill out all of the fields on the applications. Candidates who attach their resume to the account and then say, see attach resume in their application will not be moved forward in the recruitment process. So you want to make sure that you fill out all fields in the application. I can't stress that enough. Another tip, number two, you want to make sure that your contact information is current, okay? And also always check for different calls and emails, okay? We will be sending you emails, probably sending you like updates. So you want to make sure that you have your contact information updated. Also, number three, double check spelling and grammar, okay? Something that's super simple, but you just want to make sure that you have, just kind of do a second check just to make sure that your spelling, grammar, and punctuation is good to go. All right. Number four, be honest about your accomplishments. We want to know your skills. We want to know your experiences, and we want to know your accomplishments. So make sure that you put those on the application, but you want to make sure that it is something that you are familiar with. All right. Number five, remember to include volunteer or community service awards and certifications. All right. That support your career objectives. All right. Number six, be specific about your computer and software and equipment skills. So don't be vague. Don't say, I know Microsoft Office software, right? You want to be specific. I know Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, okay? You want to make sure that you're specific. All right. And then number seven, the last tip is to read the job announcement thoroughly. Okay. Match it against your resume before you apply. Okay. Carefully read the minimum qualifications and the special requirements. As Donna shared earlier today, you want to make sure that you read over those minimum qualifications. Okay. If you do not meet them, understand that you cannot be considered for the job. All right. So I will also be dropping a link in the chat to the county's page with more information on the hiring process and contact information in the chat in case you have additional questions about the position. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Donna.
Thank you all so much, Treasurer. That was great information, great tips. I know the county has a very structured process. So if you do have questions, as Treasurer pointed out, we have a CSB careers page where a lot of those tips are. You'll find that information and more information on the county page. So thank you, Treasurer, for dropping that in the chat. So they'll have that available. A couple things to look for. So the job advertisement is going to post on Saturday, October 9th, this Saturday. It's going to run for 3 weeks. Each of the county's recruitments has a deadline. So what happens is in the process, this job is going to run for 3 weeks. So the deadline to submit your application will be on Friday, October 29th at 11:59 p.m. No applications will be looked at during that process, during that 3-week time. It isn't until after the full 3 weeks has ended, the deadline has passed, and that following week, the Central Department of Human Resources will go through and screen your applications to determine who meets the minimum qualifications. And that's why the information Treasurer just shared is critical. Make sure it's on your application because we want you to pass through that minimum qualification screening so that the hiring managers, Marla and Andrea and Chad, they're going to be able to consider your application and then drill down and look at your preferred qualifications and all that additional community service and experience that we want to hear about. So we want that opportunity. So make sure you do invest time on your application. So again, it's posting Saturday. We'll close on Friday, 10/29. After the hiring managers review them, if you are selected to move forward in the process, again, keep an eye out on your email and or calls because that's how we'll be following up with you. If you have any questions, I don't know that I've seen, is there any questions in the chat that we need to talk about? If not, and you think of something after our session today, then feel free to reach out to one of us. Treasurer is going to drop our contact information in the chat as well. So again, I serve as a recruiter for the CSB and can speak to you in general about CSB positions and any benefits or steps in the application recruitment process. I'm happy to do that. you have very specific questions about the role, Chad, who is currently a behavioral health prevention specialist, would be a great resource. Marla, Andrea, Treasurer, again, HR business partner, very knowledgeable. So we would love to hear from you if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions, and Treasurer has put our contact information in. So with that, we want to thank you again for participating in today's session, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for attending.
Thank you, everyone. I will, it looks like people are logging off. I will say one question that comes up often, Donna, is this a clinical position? Because we are with the Community Services Board, and so it is not a clinical position.
That is an important distinction. I think you're right. The CSB has so many different service areas. Many of our positions are clinical in nature. So this one, having that clinical experience and background is needed for the job. But as you shared, the nature of the work itself would not be considered clinical. Yeah, really good.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't
All
be
right.
a direct service. Yep.
All right. Thanks for adding that. All right. So we're going to conclude the recording, and thank you again all for attending.